terrible thing about it is that the universities have been taken over by the political left, by people that are really steeped in Marxism. And when I was in graduate school, there were professors that you knew were Marxists. They let you know that they were Marxists. Nowadays, professors don't say they're Marxists. It's so much a part of the culture of the university that they don't have to say it. And among those people that are Marxists and they want a radical overthrow of the U.S. government, undermining the Constitution is part of their agenda.
Hillary's America is the latest film from the creators of America. Imagine the world without her and the 2016 Obama's America. It takes audiences on a gripping journey into the secret history of the Democratic Party and the contentious rise of the presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Hi, and welcome to Mid-South Viewpoint. I'm Byron Tyler. We're going to talk about Hillary's America, the film that actually starts this Friday. We also have the privilege of joining us via phone, someone who is part of this movie, Dr. Carol M. Swain, professor of political science and professor of law at Vanderbilt University. She's also the founder of the Carol Swain Foundation and Carol Swain Enterprises. Now, we could talk about Carol's accolades, her background, and really spend the whole radio show this half hour doing that. She is widely recognized expert on campaign and elections, racial policies, immigration reform, and religious liberties. She's also served on the Tennessee Advisory Committee to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission and the National Endowment of the Humanitarians Council. She is also, you probably have seen her on Fox News, CNN, all the news channels, the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, the Washington Times, USA Today have all quoted her. She's even been quoted by Supreme Court justices from her book, Be the People, A Call to Reclaim America's Faith and Promise. Let's welcome Dr. Carol M. Swain to Mid-South Viewpoint. Dr. Swain, good to have you on today.
It's my pleasure, always.
We're trying to work on a project actually in the Nashville area where Bot Radio Network has a station. I'm hoping that we'll be able to get you hosting a radio show similar to what I'm doing here in Memphis.
I'm excited about the prospect because I believe media is how you reach people. Everyone's busy these days. They don't have time to read everything they need to read. We watch too much TV, and radio is a very effective medium for people to educate themselves further about a lot of issues.
Radio and also podcasting has become a sensation. Everybody's creating podcasts. The audio form, I think, is so much more convenient than just edging in front of a television. You can carry it with you as you go, as you exercise, as you work. Hey, before we get into Hillary's America, Carol, let's talk about your backstory. Before all the prestigious career accomplishments, award-winning books, as I mentioned, references by U.S. Supreme Court judges, where did life start for you, and what were the conditions surrounding that start look like?
First of all, I have to say that I know that Jesus Christ, the God of the Judeo-Christian Bible, elevated me from a situation of poverty. I'm one of 12 children that were born and raised in rural poverty in southwestern Virginia. My parents were divorced before I was old enough to know that they were living together as a couple. Maybe they divorced when I was like 3 or 4. I had a stepfather. I was in a very abusive, alcoholic situation. I dropped out of school after completing the 8th grade, married at 16, had my first child at 17, but all of my siblings also dropped out of high school. 3 of us have high school equivalencies. So the life that I have today would not be predicted by how I started, because of the 12, I am the only one that was able to get out of poverty and reach a middle-class status and to get the education. And it's clear to me that God opened doors, He closed doors, He steered me, He protected me. I was never involved with the drug scene at all. And by drug scene, I mean marijuana, any of those things. He sheltered me, even though I did not become a devout believer until 16, 17 years ago.
What was the turning point? What was the pivotal point for you that caused you to become that devout believer?
Well, I can tell you now that I have been born again. There's a honeymoon period that if you have a Christian conversion experience late in life, that God is very close. He's like hovering around you, and all of a sudden your life kind of makes sense. But it's clear to me that God was always with me, And as a child, I had a sense of urgency, that there was something I was supposed to do. And I can't describe it. I can say that everyone that knew me as a child said I was not like any of the other children. My mother said that I was always off to myself. I was quiet. I was reading. I was drawing. And that the things that came out of my mouth did not seem to come out of a child's mouth. And so that's part of what my mother has had to say. But I've always felt like there was something I was supposed to do. But then I married at 16, had my first child at 17. And life was pretty dismal for a while. For a while, I hung out with Jehovah's Witnesses and was very depressed. Suicide gestures, taking bottles of pills, and all the while, just unease. 1975, I got a high school equivalency. The next year, I started a community college and earned the first of 5 degrees. But during this time, for 20-some years, I stayed away from organized religion. I was kind of spiritual in the sense that I had enough sense to know that there was something larger than me guiding my life, but I would not have said it was Jesus Christ. And I was being very successful. I graduated from my 4-year college, magna cum laude, me, the high school dropout. And at the time, I was working a full-time job, 40 hours a week, nights and weekends, at the community college library. That was not so challenging in the sense that no one used the library nights and weekends, and so I was able to do my homework. And most people who are working full-time jobs don't have that luxury. I had that luxury.
You know, it's interesting, Carol, when you share this story, I just reflecting on the speech I heard last night at the Republican convention with Melania Trump. Matter of fact, she's being butchered over the media this morning about quoting Michelle Obama's speech, kids having a dream, working hard. I thought, you know what, that's what we should put in front of our kids constantly. And you experienced that yourself. I
always believed in the American dream, and I grew up at a time when we knew that we were living in the greatest country in the world. And I felt blessed to live in America. And, you know, I knew things were not perfect for blacks and African Americans, but I always had hope, and I always believed that if I worked hard, I could overcome the circumstances of my birth. And I was able to do that, but I don't take credit for my success. I know that God opened doors for me. He gave me favor with people. And even my becoming a university professor, that's the last profession I would have chosen because I didn't know anything about it. Yeah. I didn't know anything about tenure or the process or getting a PhD, and my life sort of shows that God gives information on a need-to-know basis. I think that's how He does each of our lives as we walk with Him and journey with Him. And those views, conservative views, was that something that you were raised with when it came to the political world? No, I don't think so. We didn't talk about politics. I remember watching the civil rights movement. You know, I was a teen doing a lot of that, or preteen, and my attitude was more militant. I remember drawing a picture of George Wallace, the governor from Alabama, posting it so that my classmates would see it. It was a wanted dead or alive poster that I drew, and I remember having a white, we call it pleather, fake leather jacket that someone gave me, and I drew a black power fist on the back of it, and I was going to be a real militant. And I just hated the fact that we never had a riot. I moved to Roanoke, Virginia, and there was nothing to do. So I can't say that I was always conservative, but I always saw the world differently. But by the time I started college, I had started to, again, see the world differently, but be more conservative. When it came to affirmative action, I wanted to prove that I was making it on my own. So I studied to be an honor student. I really applied myself. I graduated, was able to get into the highest honor fraternity we had at the time, and I was later inducted into Phi Beta Kappa. I also started a scholarship at the 4-year college, Roanoke College, for minorities that was supposed to be an academic scholarship, but they ended up giving it to people on a need-based basis rather than academics. And the scholarship is still there, endowed. It's the Constance J. Hamler Scholarship, named after one of the black professors I had at the community college. Wow. Carol, it seems like the Constitution has become no more than a document enshrined in a museum glass case. What's it going to take for our leaders to interpret and execute according to its original intention? Well, the terrible thing about it is that the universities have been taken over by the political left, by people that are really steeped in Marxism. And when I was in graduate school, there were professors that you knew were Marxists. They let you know that they were Marxists. Nowadays, professors don't say they're Marxists. It's so much a part of the culture of the university that they don't have to say it. And among those people that are Marxists and they want a radical overthrow of the U.S. government, undermining the Constitution is part of their agenda. So you have people educated at the Ivy League schools. That would be most of the people on the Supreme Court. And not all of these people have a respect for the Constitution or the American way of life. And until you open up the Supreme Court and more of Congress to people that come from just regular, universities and colleges that are closer to the American people, I think we're going to continue to get those in power who disrespect the American way of life and the values and principles that I believe made America great.
How did you come into getting this role in the movie Hillary's America, and was it an easy sell for you to get involved in this project?
Well, first of all, I'd like to make it clear that I'm not a paid member of the cast, that I'm in that film as an expert, playing myself as professor of political science and law. And I'm saying playing myself. Dinesh, I've known him for maybe 20 years. And I went to an event last summer where he was speaking in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Your listeners will know where Murfreesboro is. And he invited me to breakfast the next day with his team, and he raised the possibility of me appearing in this movie. I didn't think much of it because I'm accustomed to people promising things and nothing ever comes of it. And the reason I chose to do it is there was an opportunity to reach a wider audience, and he came to me because I have studied the history of the political parties, and so I am an expert in that area. So he asked me, didn't expect much to come of it. In fact, normally I tell everyone all of my business. This time I kept it close to my chest. And I did not actually believe it was going to happen until I was on my way to Dallas. And then during that time, there was this controversy last fall with me being attacked again by students at Vanderbilt. There was a lot going on, and I filmed my part, and I still kept it close to my chest, only telling a few people why I was there. They knew I was there for a party related to the film, but I didn't say I was in the film because I thought, well, maybe I will end up on the chopping floor. Maybe my part, won't make it in the movie. And so to spare myself the embarrassment, I didn't tell many people, and it turned out that I believe I had 15 to 20 minutes in the film, which is a significant portion of time in a 100-minute film.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and I was pleased with what I saw. And, and I don't mean pleased in the sense of, pride, smug, arrogance. It's just that I almost never watch myself when I give an interview, and I always think I'm terrible. I don't like my voice. And people were coming up to me saying, oh, we really like your voice. We like the way you speak. And I'm just shocked because I'm always thinking when I get enough resources, I'm going to hire a coach and I'm going to learn how to really speak.
Well, I'll tell you what, I feel very similar to you. I don't like the way I speak either, and I've been doing broadcasting for a long time. And when I heard the demo tapes that you did out of Nashville to present to our company, I told Todd, she is great. I love the way she presents herself. You do a great job, Carol.
Well, it's all God, because I was shy most of my life, and I had a Christian conversion experience. The Lord took away my shyness.
And he can do that. He definitely can do that. In the movie, what are you most passionate about concerning the theme of this film?
Well, just there are a couple of themes that are important. One is just the racial history of the Democratic Party and how, even though the Democratic Party presents itself as the friend of people of color, if you look historically, it has not been for black people. And when blacks were brought into the party in the 1960s, it was because of the Voting Rights Act. And the Republicans throughout history have been pushing for equality for everyone. And you see Republicans are the ones that are fighting for the lives of unborn black children. That the Democratic Party in parts of the country, there are more black babies being murdered through abortion that are being born. That should be a huge civil rights issue. If it were Republicans doing that to blacks, we would call it what it is, genocide. And I'm hoping that a lot of African Americans will see the film and they'll start thinking, because and they would ask themselves that question, are you better off today than you were 8 years ago? And I think for the black community as a whole, all the data shows that blacks are worse off. I hope that out of it for the black community will be more people that will be willing to give the Republican Party a chance. I recognize the Republican Party is not perfect. It's made up of imperfect individuals. But the more blacks associate with the party and vote with the party, the more power they will have to help shape legislation. And we know that government is not the solution for America, the solution for blacks, or the solution for anyone, that we do need to return to our Judeo-Christian values and principles.
Well, Carol, as you mentioned, Hillary's America portrays Democrats' transition from pro-slavery to pro-enslavement. Could you elaborate on the accuracy in which this film makes its case?
The historical part is totally accurate. There are scenes in there where Dinesh is talking to prisoners and they're telling him about crime and how crime operates. Of those scenes, I don't know if those criminals did what they said or anything about that, but when it comes to the historical accuracy, it's totally factual. And then when he talks about Hillary and the crimes that she and her husband have been involved in, Bill Clinton, former president, and I would say crimes, that's accurate. I mean, anyone can go and check out this information. So the film is something that will educate people, and it should be a starting point for them to get more information.
There is an outcry for justice in our country today. There's an outcry for truth as well. In what ways do you feel Hillary's America exposed the lack of justice and truth?
I mean, I think it does a powerful job of doing it. It's very moving. At times, I found myself tearing up. And it has a huge cast of minorities. They had 1,000 cast members, and all of their names are listed in the credits. And I thought that was kind of impressive. But, a lot of times you have movies, they certainly don't list everyone that was involved. And so one thing about Dinesh, he hired a lot of people of color in Dallas to work on that film.
Don't you find it interesting that with all the talk of immigration, it was an immigrant filmmaker, Dinesh, who you just mentioned, would make a movie about the history and operations of American politics?
In some ways, probably he was the only one that could do it, because I think that people that are on the outside, because he's an outsider too, to a large extent, being conservative and being a minority, and, like myself, I see myself to a large extent as an outsider as well. We can see things and we can say things that other people can't always, or they're not willing. They may see it, but they're not willing to speak. And I believe that this movie has the potential to change the course of a nation, and that people that watch it, they may want to dismiss it, say it's lies, but I would encourage those people to go do your research. And then, once you are convinced that the movie is accurate, that it is about America, about making us all better, then roll up your sleeves and get out there and do something.
So do you feel like those are the essential takeaways from Hillary's America and what you just said there?
Well, it was at the end, it was very patriotic, very moving, and all the scenes were dramatic. I thought he did an excellent job. I'm not sure what the budget was for the movie, but I'm very proud to have been associated.
Do you think with all the division that we're experiencing, Carol, in our nation right now, that films like this are just going to further divide us?
I don't think so. I think truth should be a uniter. And so the movie is not divisive. It's not meant to be divisive, but it does hit Hillary Clinton and the Democrats pretty hard, but they deserve it. They deserve it.
Now, Shelby County is the largest county in the state of Tennessee, which I know you're sure aware of, made up mostly of African Americans who traditionally vote Democrat. As an African American, what would you say to listeners right now, and our African American listeners specifically, as to why they should go see this film?
They should just see it so that they can understand better the histories of the two political parties. And I know the ones that have gone to college will say, yes, it's true, but the parties flipped. That's not totally accurate. That's not accurate, and the film shows why it isn't. But I was a Democrat most of my life. I left the Democratic Party after I had my Christian conversion experience. I did not become a Republican right away. I didn't become a Republican until 2009. And it was difficult for me to make that transition because I had been ingrained in my head that Republicans were bad, Democrats were good. I knew that the Republicans, were the party of Lincoln and that they had fought for the first Civil Rights Act and all of that stuff like that, but it was still difficult for me to make that transition. And one of the hardest things I had to do was to go to my precinct and ask for that Republican ballot. And I think that for Democrats that want to leave the Democratic Party and vote Republican maybe for the first time, that you need a friend to go with you. And I think the Republicans that are trying to reach out to minorities, they have to realize that it's a difficult thing to do alone. I did it alone. To walk into that precinct, full of people of color and ask for the Republican ballot. And it seems like the people working will say, "You want the Republican ballot?" in a loud voice, and everyone turns maybe and looks at you. That's easier done, with a couple of friends than done alone. And I've told people we ought to set up a support group for Democrats that are voting Republican for the first time. I think the people think I'm joking. I am deadly serious.
Carol, there seems to be quite a leadership vacuum in our nation, not only among Democrats, but Republicans too. Where are our statesmen and the leaders that we need to really make this country great again?
Some of them are in college, and some of them are young, and, and some of the older ones are rising up. I believe that they're there. We just have to keep encouraging people and supporting people and fighting for our First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association. Those are rights that we all should have a stake in defending.
I mentioned you've authored several books, and you've got one in the works for this fall. Can you give us a little insight into what's going to forthcome?
Well, they have not given us a definite publication date. I'm hoping it will be out in September. It's called Abduction, How Liberalism Steals the Hearts and Minds of Our Children. And
as we close out, just give us a few thoughts there.
Well, what the book does is it focuses on mostly on the educational system and what's happening in public and private schools that parents may not be aware of. And each chapter ends with an example of someone that's making a positive difference in the community, and also with some concrete action points that people can do if they want to make a difference. I did the same thing with my book, Be the People, A Call to Reclaim America's Faith and Promise, that each chapter ended with concrete action points. I believe that it's okay, that you can provide information and you can educate people, but you also need to give them some direction at times because a lot of people want suggestions. So I always try to do that.
The movie is called Hillary's America. It starts this Friday at Malco Theaters in the Memphis area. Be sure and check listings for all the show times. And no, I can't buy your popcorn and Coke, but please go see the film. Our guest, Dr. Carol M. Swain, is featured in the film. As she mentioned, she has a pretty lengthy role. 15 minutes is definitely a good part in a film. So go and see the film. Carol, how can listeners follow you, get your books, watch your videos, and learn more about Dr. Carol M. Swain?
There are two things. First of all, the complete name of the movie is Hillary's America, The Secret History of the Democratic Party. So it's about the Democratic Party as much as it is about Hillary. Almost the first half of the movie or more is about the history of the Democratic Party with reenactments, many African-American actors. And if you want to know what I'm doing, my websites are BeThePeopleTV.com. You can search for me under Carol M. Swain. My Facebook is Professor Carol M. Swain, and my Twitter is @Carol M. Swain. And so if you want to contact me, you can use any of those venues.
Well, we really hope that we can work things out soon to get you on the Bot Radio Network, especially in the Nashville area. If you don't mind, I'm going to have you come back and be on this show, future episodes, as we speak on issues similar to what we have today.
Oh, I would love to do that.
Carol, it's been our pleasure. God bless you. Thank you for what you're doing for Christ's kingdom, your position there at Vanderbilt, and the other opportunities that God allows you to have through your writings, through other appearances that you have. We just appreciate you so much for taking time with us on Mid-South Viewpoint.
Thank you so much.
Friends, that's all the time we have on this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Byron Tyler. Hey, we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.